Okay, in this video, I'm just going to extend on a couple of videos that I've made previously. One of those videos was adding a highlighter behind text, and the other video was about how to create and manage custom animations. So the original video I made for the highlighter was just a static highlight. So whenever you put a class, a CSS class on that heading, you would get a highlight behind it. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to combine that with a custom animation effect that will actually display a moving highlighter background as the heading comes into view. Just to prepare here, I've started with a very basic page. I had a couple of columns of lorem ipsum text, and I did that so that I can look at the entrance animation as this comes into view. So because we're going to have a bit of transparency with our highlighter, I want to just have something in the background. So I'll just create a simple section with a image in the background. I'll put a single heading 2. We're going to use heading 2 in particular. Heading widget. I've set it to a positioning of inline auto, and then I've gone to the column and set the horizontal line to center to set that in the middle. There is our heading 2 ready to go. All right, now the video for custom entrance animations, I'll put that in the description as a link. I'm going to really just gloss over that here because I've covered it in depth in the other video. Now, if we come back to where we ended up with our code snippets for our entrance animations, this is where we left off. I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to basically, I want to make an H2 highlighter. I'm actually going to get rid of all this, the extra stuff I don't need for the purpose of this. I've got an H2 highlighter class, and we're going to call that H2 title highlight. So again, look at the video on this, which will be a separate video, and I'll link to that in the description. So I'm going to save the changes to my code snippet. So what I'm doing is adding a My Animations section to the entrance animation dropdowns, which will add this class, the H2 highlighter class, to a widget when it comes into the viewport if we select H2 title highlighter. Let's come back to here. I'm going to update that to Control F5 so that it picks up the changes that I made in this H2 highlighter here. Okay, I'm going to select my heading widget, so I'm editing the heading. Going to my advanced, I'm going to make the motion effects my new HT title highlighter. So you can see down here we've got My Animations HT title highlighter, which is what we set up over here. All right, so that hasn't done anything yet. All it's done is added the class to this when it comes into view. Now, a note with this particular entrance animation is that we can't use the slow, normal, and fast here. We're going to have to set a duration. And the reason for that is we're going to animate a before pseudo class, so we can stick a DOM element behind this. And with the way these normal, slow, and fast, it just won't apply to that. So we're going to have to do that manually. All right, so we're going to head over to our site settings and our custom CSS. Now, to save some time, I've already created some CSS, so I'm just going to copy and paste that and I'll walk through that. Paste that in there. Now, I like to use CSS Variables, so it's easy to change these without having to go to all the lines of code and find them. So I've got, these are the default ones that I've used on previous stuff. So the ones I'm using for this demonstration is this wpg-highlighter-color, and it's RGBA, so that's red with a opacity of 99, because we want some transparency there. We're going to set a duration of 1 second, and we're going to use this timing function here, which I'll explain as we look at the demonstration. So the first thing we want to do is, so when this heading here comes into view, going to add this H2 highlighter class to it. We want to target the H2 of this and make the position relative, put a bit of padding around it and set it to inline block. The reason we want to do that is that if the position of the parent container is not inline block, that widget will take up the full width. We only want to apply the highlight to the H2 area. So if we're not positioning this as inline auto, it would be by default 100%, which would take up the full width of that, but we only want the highlighter behind the H2. So we select the H2, then we create another class here, which is the H2 highlighter H2 before pseudo selector. Okay, now we have to make a content of empty, otherwise with CSS, for whatever reason, it just doesn't display anything at all. We're going to set our background color as this highlighter color up here, which is the RGBA value up there. Position is absolute, and we want it to be at the bottom left of this H2. And we'll make the height 1em. Okay, so that's going to be 1 times the whatever the height of that section is. Okay, the width we're going to start it at 1%. We don't have to do that there. We can put that in the keyframes down here. I'm going to set the Z index to -1, which puts the before pseudo selector behind the H2. We might have to actually add some Z index to the widget so that it doesn't disappear behind our other elements. We'll see soon. I'm going to rotate the whole H2 before selector, which is going to be a highlight, by -1 degrees. It just gives us a nice little slight angle. So it just looks like it's not perfect, so as it wouldn't be if you're just using a highlighter pen. We're then setting our animation name to H2 highlighter, so that's going to call this keyframe here, or keyframes definition here. Fill mode default, it's entrance animation, so we want it to end its CSS at the final point. The timing function, which is how it's going to animate, so we've got a cubic-bezier here, which I'll go back over shortly, and our duration. Now, the animation duration, when we're doing the custom entry effects, normally we do not specify these, and that allows us to use the slow, medium, and fast from the UI. But because we're targeting this before pseudo selector, that doesn't work. So we've actually got to specify the duration here, which I'm making 1 second here. As always, we duplicate those and we add those with the WebKit prefix just to make them more compatible with more browsers. So that's pretty much that. Okay, so we've got our CSS in place. I'm just going to hit update the editor. Okay, so I'm going to select my heading, advanced, motion effects, and it should be on title H2 highlighter. Okay, so I can't see anything behind there. Why is that? Let's have a look here at our Z index. Let's set a Z index of, say, 10. There we go. So what happened, because I've got a -1 on the highlighter, it disappears behind the section below it because it doesn't have a Z index. So yeah, if you're going to use this, you need to just highlight that by putting a Z index on the actual heading widget. Update that. And we'll view this page. Okay, so what I wanted to see is when it comes into view, I want that animation to be added to it. So let's see what happens. There we go. So I'm just going to hit the F5. See how it animates in. Okay, so let's have a look at what that cubic bezier is. I did cover this in the animations video. I'm just going to have a look here and go to the H2 Remember we put the animation on the before pseudo selector. We're going to go to that and find the animation. Why can't I find the animation? There we go. Our timing function is that. Well, that's interesting because we use a variable, not showing us the actual Bezier. So I'm just going to change that to cubic-bezier. Okay. Maybe 1,1,1,1. See if I get. There we go. Now I've got the cubic-bezier UI in the Chrome Dev tool. So if I click on that, that's just going 1-to-1. I can change this. I'm watching that dot again. So how do we want this animation to work? We want it to come in really fast and then slow down. We want it to go fast and then backwards. I'm just looking at how we want this to animate. Let's say we want it to come in really quickly, slow down. That way it's going backwards. That's going to look really strange. That sort of, it's like we're sliding in our slider, our pen, sorry. So if we go swipe, slow down, and then flick at the end. So I quite like that. So I'm going to grab that cubic-bezier. I'm going to put that in our animation. So I'm going to change that cubic-bezier here. Take that. And refresh this page. And now you see it sort of goes in really quickly, and then it flicks at the end. So whatever you want that to be, you can change that animation function so that it kind of looks like you're highlighting by a quick flick in, a pause, and then a flick at the end. Anyway, so that's pretty much how I would animate a highlight effect on a H2. So the key takeaways here that you're going to make sure that this heading widget has a z-index above whatever this background is. If they're the same z-index as the background, and then we do a -1 for the highlight's going to disappear behind what's behind it. Okay, that's pretty much my way of doing this. So I hope you get some value out of this.